the dying embers of human existence. As the asteroid, a behemoth the size of Texas, hurtles relentlessly toward Earth, the world braces for an apocalyptic end. Deep beneath the bunker, a refuge plunges into the bowels of the Earth. Here the chosen gather, their purpose clear, to preserve the very soul of our civilization. The 35 and 70mm prints that encapsulate the magic, the emotion, and the dreams of generations past. These masterpieces, each frame a testament to the human spirit, are carefully cataloged and cradled in the cavernous confines of the bunker. Perhaps there was room for more, for friends and family yearning for salvation, but sacrifices must be made. The movie nerds stand united, the keepers of a flame, promising a future where the art of storytelling endures, transcending the boundaries of time and space. God help us all.
Welcome to Back to the Frame Rate, part of the Weston Media Podcast Network. Join us as we watch and discuss films on VOD and streaming platforms, deliberating on whether each one is worthy of salvation or destined for destruction in the face of the impending asteroid apocalypse. You can find more episodes of this podcast on backtotheframerate.com, or you can subscribe and share our show and find us on our socials at Back to the Frame Rate. I am Nathan Shore, and accompanying me is the extraordinary movie maven, Brianna Butterworth. And filling in for Sam today is returning champion, the Graceland cinema sage, Dave Merrill.
Hello.
Welcome, Dave.
I worked hard on thinking of some cheesy nickname for you. You're welcome to rewrite it.
No, I love it. Actually, I would say I would not think to do that myself, but that's in the name of the king, and that being Elvis Presley, I accept.
Okay. Well, it's great to have you back again for another episode of our podcast. It's always a pleasure. All the insight and wisdom you bring to our podcast. Thank you. Before we get into our discussion of this movie, we're talking about the talented Mr. Ripley. What's going on with you? Give us the 60-second little synopsis of what's going on in your life. Anything going on with the projects you've been working on?
Is that to me or is that to
That's
me?
to you. We know what's going on in B's life.
We do.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say that. Okay. Let me. I'm sorry. Taking a second to frame my thoughts.
I'm throwing you off. I threw you off. I know.
Two recent trips abroad. The one a couple of months back, or nearly a couple of months back now, traveling through Italy with my girlfriend, my cousin, and his wife, who is in publishing, and over a long dinner in the fantastic apartment in Rome that he found for us. There's a cinematic connection there. I promise you. She asked me a question about creative projects, and I actually talked to her about the turn of the century paranormal creative project that I told you about the last time we did the podcast. And my cousin's wife is in marketing now, but she used to work for like a very large publishing house in New York. And so I'm telling her this, I'm trying to give her an encapsulated version of, basically the 3 to 5 minute, elevator pitch over dinner of like, well, the story's about this and it's about this guy. And I'm working on it as both a novel, but also I'm writing scripts based on it, for potential cable show pitch. And, and I'm thinking, then she was really kind of silent, just kind of staring at me. And I was thinking, oh, she hates it. This is terrible. And she was just like, but at a certain point, she stopped. She's like, what, wait, why haven't you sold this? And I'm like, I don't know. Why haven't I sold this? And then, and I was like, well, and I said, the truth is, I feel like it needs more work. And I feel like I need to work more on the Showrunner's Bible. And I feel like she's like, wait a minute. And I showed her one of the notebooks that I happened to bring with me. And she's like, no, you need to type this up and you need to just get this out into the world. And I was like, okay. So that was kind of my marching orders for this fall. Or this fall and this
Can you
spring.
tell our listeners just a little bit what this project was, just some context?
Yeah. So okay. So the basic the basic concept for it is that it is and I hate talking in media shorthand, but I sort of feel like I have to. it's basically if you took the X-Files, but you moved it back to turn of the century and you placed it in Europe, but the protagonist is an African American priest that works as an exorcist investigator for the Vatican. But you have other characters in other parts of Europe, occultists and spies and people like that. And all of the occult activity that was happening just prior to the outbreak of World War. And that's the basic premise for the show. And I mean, and if that's not, enough, I could kind of pepper it with, the themes that are involved. It's like, cryptids and, demons and demonology and the occult and, things that go bump at the night. So,
sounds amazing.
Sounds really, really cool. Yeah. I just was hoping that I just wanted to see if there's any recent updates for it because you gave us a pretty detailed synopsis of what was going on a couple months ago. So, yeah.
So working on it.
I didn't mean to put pressure on you on the spot. I'm sorry I did that, but
no. But it's the old joke of like, how do you piss off a writer? You ask them how it's going, No, but it doesn't, it doesn't piss me off. It doesn't piss me off. It's like, it helps me to hear people go, wow, no, that's not crap. That's a good idea.
I think it is.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Me too. The trip to Ireland, which was the trip after Italy, also visited a lot of ancient historic sites, Neolithic sites, but then also a lot of ruined abbeys and churches and castles, and got even more material, ideas rolling around in there for the show. So
when you do your traveling, do you seek out ever look for movie locations?
Of course I do. What's
the coolest movie location that you sought out on one of your adventures?
Well, so I guess in prepping for this, I would tell you that both that I had to find, there are certain places that I wanted to find in Italy, relating to talented Mr. Ripley. I mean, and I think I told you before that the trip before this most recent trip, I stayed in the town of Atrani, which was the filming location for the Netflix series Ripley. But then this last time, we actually found sites. We found sites in Rome and outside of Rome where they shot certain scenes for talented Mr. Ripley. There's a I'm trying to think of, I will butcher the Italian name of the piazza that is also the museum. But it's the one where there's a giant foot, and Matt Damon as Ripley is in front of these statues, and then there's a big one of Constantine, and so we saw that. But then a bunch of the like the Piazza di Spagna, which I had promised my dear departed mother that I would see the Piazza di Spagna, because when we saw the movie Ripley together, she's like, I don't believe it. I was like, what is it? She's like, the Piazza di Spagna is never that deserted. It's never. She goes, how did they do that? I'm like, movie magic, Mom, movie magic. And I was thinking about us, Nathan. I was like thinking, yeah, if we were working on that, we would be the guys, tasked with shooing away people, like, please stay away. We're shooting something if we're working on it. Yeah. So lots of locations from that. And then, I don't know, there was a lot of places in Ireland that I saw and I was like, I thought I'd recognize from Game of Thrones. I'm pretty sure that we, inadvertently stumbled upon, sites where they shot, Game of Thrones. And then there's another Netflix series about the Irish Rebellion the Irish Revolution called Rebellion. And I know for a fact that we saw, because we visited Trinity College, we visited Dublin Castle. So I know that we saw sites there related to that.
Dave, I fully thought you were going to say Derry Girls.
I know. Here's the sad thing.
I love that show, though.
I love that show. We only started really watching it, and we binge watched it the minute that we got back. We're like, we found it, and then I was like, another friend of mine really recommended it. I was like, you know what? Look, let's give it a shot. And we just could not stop laughing and could not watching that show. That is a fantastic show. I absolutely love Derry Girls.
It's great.
It's great, and now having had the experience and talked to Irish people, it was like, this is so spot on, perfect and funny. And I see our director over there is.
This is our Derry Girl podcast now.
So
taking over. Hope everybody likes it.
I also, having survived Catholic school, I loved the role of Sister George Michael.
Yes.
Yeah,
She
which was
reminds me, my
awesome.
mother went to Catholic school, and she reminds me of
Uh-huh.
the storied nuns that I heard
Yeah.
about.
It's an experience. If you have an experience that it's hard to explain to people, but because they go, "Oh, Catholic school." I'm like, "No, unless it's
They're
like
such
a
people.
yeah, yeah, it's a thing." Yeah, it was wonderful. It was really great. And the whole thing of the little phrases that they use, like, "What's the crack?" or "Are you
Mhm.
cracking on?" or "You taking a piss?" But then, which I learned, you don't say in Ireland, you don't say taking the piss, you say taking the mick. Are you taking the mick?
Mhm.
And yeah, we actually had a fun time asking, the native Irish about, what do you guys really say? And they would kind of laugh
This
and tell
feels like
you.
you were channeling Mr. Ripley a little bit here.
Oh, well, trying,
Just
I guess.
blending.
Yeah,
Blending in,
yeah,
David.
yeah. Sans murder.
Well, don't count your chickens, you know?
I read in my research that many people after this movie wanted to create a whole Taylor to Mr. Ripley wedding theme around this movie. This is a thing,
That's
minus
terrifying.
minus the
How?
murder.
You know what I
Okay.
was thinking, if we're talking like Pinterest inspo, movie Pinterest style
Mhm.
inspo, weirdly I got kind of an American Gigolo vibe. David, we did American Gigolo last year, and we
Uh-huh.
talked about the Armani influence with Richard Gere, and I could
Hmm.
easily have seen that if they had stuck to a certain brand
Oh, yeah.
for this film, with all it's just everything is so tailored
Well,
and
I would
looks
say
rather
couple,
gorgeous.
couple times a
Hmm.
year I watch a movie that makes me completely want to throw away my wardrobe. And American Gigolo was the one last year. This movie this year, I
This
realized
year,
I need.
yeah.
I looked at my wardrobe. I'm like, crap.
God, I'm
I
such a schlub. Like,
Okay, I'm in one way, I am so relieved to hear you both bring that up, because here's the thing. So, confessing to my cousin, who he's a New Yorker. I mean, he lives in Manhattan, and we were talking about the trip to Italy, and I said, okay, so, because okay, to describe this, my cousin is the type of guy. He has three tailors in Manhattan and
sure.
two custom shirt makers. He's that kind of guy.
Yeah.
Which I mean this. I don't mean this. I'm not. I
Respect.
mean this
Yeah.
out of respect. And so I said, so look in the film. He talks about this tailor that he's going to get. Ripley. I mean, I'm sorry, Jude Law's character. Dickie. Teases Ripley and says, "I'm going to get you a new jacket when you go to Rome. Battistone, the best." And my cousin kind of looked at me and he laughed and he was like, he goes, "Yeah, that for 1958, sure." He goes, "But the truth is that he wouldn't have, if they were living in the southern part in Amalfi, he wouldn't have gotten tailoring in Rome, where it's very pedestrian. He would have gone to a place in Naples. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take you there because I've scheduled an appointment. I've scheduled an appointment with a tailor shop.
Oh my
I'm
God,
having
David,
some
you're living
suits
my
made.
dream.
I'm having some suits made." And he goes, "And I've also found a custom shirt maker.
Oh
So,
man.
if you want, you can go with me to both." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I am going with
Yes.
you." So
My God.
he goes, "It's not Battistoni. It's actually these two Italian brothers that inherited the business from their father, which I believe started by their grandfather, Giardi." And so we go to this tailor shop, which you'll see. It's not like you go into a mall and there it is.
Sure.
You walk through this residential neighborhood, and then there's this grand older, big building with that you walk in, and then there's a courtyard, and there's a concierge, and then you tell this person, but behind the little glass and wood booth, where you go, and then he points it out, and then he kind of buzzes them. And so we walk in through, and then boom, there you are. And there are these two middle-aged Italian brothers, the Giardi brothers. And I wish I'd known. I would have sent Nathan. I would have sent you like photographs, because I took photographs of this place. Totally charming little place. You go into this one little like den area that they have, which is like an old office. It's got these big like leather Chesterfield sofas, and then bookshelves and books and books and books, but they're actually sample books of cloth. Okay, and then you go into the other room, And then, that's where like their cutting table is, and then all the measuring stuff, and they go in, and so they start measuring my cousin, and then they're writing down and then they bring out the books of cloth, and they're like, you're thinking, is this what season is this for? Is this for spring? Is it for, you going to be wearing this to work? Are you going to be wearing this for casual work? And all this stuff, and he's like going through and selecting all this cloth, and it's just this. You could have done a whole documentary just based on this experience.
This is wonderful. Yeah.
And then they offer you, but then also, and I learned this is also like a custom apparently, and then they're like, cafe. Which is like,
it's just a luxury store. Oh my God, that's some Pretty Woman shit. Did you see that Italian documentary about truffles? The old men who just hunt truffles with their dogs and lie to their wives about it. This is very that. I don't know.
But we just watched Pig with Nicolas Cage.
Ooh.
Also good.
Yeah. Great. Oh my Lord, that was beautiful. Oh, that's wonderful. That's a really wonderful film. Yeah, that's a great film.
All right, this is our podcast about.
Stop for a moment. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna rein this back in for a moment. Yep. We're here to talk about the talented Mr. Ripley. I am going to start with a plot synopsis and the trailer for this, and we're going to get into the details of this film here. In late 1950s New York, as much as we could talk all about fashion and cafe, we could do a spin-off podcast. I am okay with that.
Chip and lie.
I am okay with that. But we might not keep our audience, and we should rename it to something else. I don't know. Anyways, in late 1950s New York, a young underachiever named Tom Ripley is sent to Italy to retrieve Dickie Greenleaf, a rich and spoiled millionaire playboy. But when the errand fails, Ripley takes extreme measures. Here is part of the trailer. I think this is it. I have so many clips today.
Thomas Ripley lived a solitary life until a wealthy man offered him an extraordinary opportunity.
Did you ever conceive of going to Italy? I'd pay you to persuade my son to come home.
Dickie Greenleaf? It's Tom Ripley. We were at Princeton together.
How do you do?
You're so white. Did you ever see a guy so white, Marge?
You should come and have lunch with us.
Now, he's in a world he always dreamed of.
No, I like him.
Marge, you like everybody. Marge, you like everybody.
If you're not home by 7 o'clock, Tom and I are running off together.
With people he always admired.
You can't sail. You can't swim. Did you ever know such low class?
Oh, yes. Poor Tom.
Living the life.
Why is it that when men play, they always play at killing each other?
All right. I'm cutting
Classic.
it. It's a great trailer.
That's great.
This is from director Anthony Minghella, who tragically passed away in 2008. Had a really great but short run. Early this year, we reviewed The English Patient. So this is our second film from his. This year alone, he did go on to do Cold Mountain in 2003. Those are like the big three
just
that he's
bangers.
known for. Yeah. Also wrote the script for this. Cinematographer John Seal, who also has a great career. Witness, 1985, movie that will always come up on this podcast. Gorillas in the Mist, Rain Man, Dead Poet Society, The Firm, and Mad Max Fury Road from almost 10 years ago now. Crazy. And
it's crazy how much more I think about Fury Road than I think about Furiosa.
Sure.
Yeah.
Same.
And music by Gabriel Yared, who such a big imprint on this movie as well. The cast, we got Matt Damon as Tom Ripley, Gwyneth Paltrow, Marge Sherwood, Jude Law as Dickie Greenleaf, Kate Blanchett as Meredith Logue, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Freddie Miles, in my opinion, actor of his generation. Jack Davenport as Peter Smith Kingsley, Philip Baker Hall eating up the scenery in his 5 minutes on screen, and James Rebhorn, known as Man in the Suit, in almost every movie he's in, as Herbert Greenleaf. Okay, I'm going to put this out right now. Is this the most well-cast movie of all time?
I was going to say, it's insane how stacked this is.
And also you take into account there are things like Jude Law turned down the part 3 times.
Really?
3 times he turned it down. And then there's the odd thing of Minghella himself, who, until English Patient, they hired him to write the screenplay, but it was a thing of like, yeah, but he can't, but they weren't even going to consider him to be a director. But then the English Patient came out.
And John
And
Malkovich wanted to do this movie
Yeah.
before Minghella. Interesting.
Right.
Tom Cruise was the original choice for Tom Ripley.
Yep.
I can see that.
Also, Leonardo DiCaprio and Christian Bale were considered for this.
Mhm.
I get that. I
Yep.
do.
I love. This is my favorite piece of trivia from this. The film inspired Tommy Wiseau to make The Room because he was so emotionally moved by it. He vowed to make a film just as, if not more, compelling.
And
I've
so
still never seen The Room.
Oh, you need to.
I told
But
you.
I know. Nathan's going to lock me in a room with Sam and we're going to watch it.
You need to watch it, but you also need to watch or read The Disaster Artist.
Mm.
And so when the book came out, which was written by his partner and his chief actor, and that the guy, the author of The Disaster Artist, actually, before the film came out, when the book came out, he did a tour and he came to Memphis and I actually got to meet him. Nathan and I were in Hollywood at the time because I remember seeing those billboards with Tommy Wiseau, and I was like, I remember asking friends of mine, like, who the hell? And they're like, oh, it's probably an actor trying to get roles. I'm like, people really do that? They do all sorts of stuff.
Few other things I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say my favorite piece of sort of bizarro casting is how incredible they got Cate Blanchett and Gwyneth Paltrow to mirror each other in this movie. Oh my God.
Kate Blanchett with an American accent just kind of breaks my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
She doesn't play Americans very often. She's Australian, right?
Yes.
Yes.
When she does, they're very rich.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This was a budget of $40 million, which would be about $75 million today, and box office $128.7 million, $241 today on today's standards. Came out on December 25th, 1999. Stacked year. Speaking of stacked year, I'll just mention a few of the awards nominations. It got 5 nominations at the Academy Awards. Only didn't win anything, but Best Supporting Actor, Jude Law. Lost to Michael Caine for The Cider House Rules. Best Adapted Screenplay. Also lost to Cider House Rules. I kind of wonder if The Cider House Rules holds up. I saw it one time in the theater. I have not seen it since. I liked it, but I don't remember much.
It's pretty good. I watched it like 5 or 6 years ago.
Best Original Score lost to The Red Violin. Never saw it. Best Production Design lost to Sleepy Hollow. I got to revisit that. I don't know about that, but Best Costume Design lost to Topsy Turvy. So, you know what? Tough year, though. Tough year.
I don't even remember.
These were the picks for 99 because it like in a stacked year. That's what we came up with, huh, Academy?
Yep. And came out the same weekend as Any Given Sunday, which was opened at number one. The movies that came out this at this time were insane. Any Given Sunday opened at number 1, $13.5 million. This debuted at number 2, just below it at 12.7. Stuart Little was number 3 in the box office. Toy Story 2 was number 4 at the box office. The Green Mile was number 5 at the box office in its third week. And I usually stop there, but I have to mention this because 2 other movies were significant. At number 6, debuting at number 6 was Man on the Moon. Also debuted at it was 7.7 million in its opening week. In Galaxy Quest, movie we're going to be reviewing in a month for our 100th live show, debuted with 7 million in its opening week. I mean, when was the last time 4 big movies opened on the same day? That's the other thing.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, it doesn't really happen that way anymore.
No.
And I would just say this: when we get to that point, I have a Galaxy Quest industry story. It's very. When you get to that point, it's very brief.
We'll get there. You got to come to out to Massachusetts in January. There you go. then you can stand up in an audience. We'll plant you, and you can look like we can look smart, and you can look smart, and
it'll be perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so this film. Wow, we could just talk about how this movie opens. We got this real incredible Saul Bass like in style like opening credits. But first of all, I just want to say I saw this in probably right after 1999 in January. I actually have a movie log that goes all the way back to January of 2000, and I saw this around the 10th or 12th of January 2000. Want to hear something really sad? And you're going to shame me. I gave this originally a 5 out of 10.
Wow,
as a
that was
score.
really dumb.
And I think it's because the 25-year-old version of Nathan didn't get this movie, didn't understand. And this is like, what is this movie? And I think this is not a movie that is meant for really a general audience. So it's kind of a hard sell if you don't know what it is. And I went into this, is this a mystery? Is this a drama? It didn't really fall into any category. And in 1999, I probably just came off of watching like The Matrix and all these other really bombastic movies from 1999. And this movie did not really vibe with me at the time. I've seen this movie now probably 4 times. Every time I see this, it gets better and better. And I now love this film. But no, this movie was just like, I don't know what to make of this. So it was just it didn't work. It didn't work for me originally. Just want to throw that out there. But I have completely turned around on this I see this probably every 10 years. And
that's not often enough, honestly.
It's probably not.
I agree with B.
This movie's beautiful. It's one of those movies that every time I watch it, there's a new layer. Like, it's just so 3-dimensional. I feel like I can just reach into the screen. It's so textured, and there's really truly something to uncover every time I watch it, whether it's an interpretation or a glance from the characters or something with the score. There's really something new to behold every time. But even just on your first watch, if you're normal, not like Nathan, no.
I love it now. It took me 25 years, but I love it.
I can see it because there's a lot to this movie, but I think it's so striking, and that's why I fell in love with it. It's just so gorgeous to look at.
Well, I want to talk about the details of this film. Oh, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say that if we're talking about, you're talking about the the opening of the film, and and overall. So the thing is, and this is one of those things where I saw it and I was always kind of struck by the opening song or the opening score. I don't really know why, but I feel now, and this is I feel compelled to mention this because again, having just returned from Ireland, I started thinking about all these Irish artists and actors and all these people that I've been influenced by or that I've loved through the years. The opening song that you hear is "Lullaby for Cain," sung by Sinead O'Connor. So, and I would just say that you should, if you go back and you you actually listen to just the song as part of the soundtrack. This part of the layering of Minghella, the genius part of it, is that he is really foreshadowing from like, not even from the first line, but really, I guess you would say, from the first lines of that song, because he talks about, there's a line in the thing, there's a line from the song that says, "Innocent eyes, such innocent eyes, and envy stole your brother's life." Okay. So this is Minghella, really telling you through song, this is what's about to happen. This is the story you're about to see.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing, which is done, really well throughout the film. Anyway,
I love the introduction of this. What do you think about the introduction to Tom? Because first of all, we know he's ambitious, he's smart. I like how he actually ascends out of like the bowels of the earth to come up. He's calling up a ladder, and I think that's also kind of foreshadowing and represents who he is as a person. He wants, he doesn't, I don't think he quite knows what he wants in life yet, but I like that it shows him like he's like, he could take any job in the world, but he chooses to take jobs like working in these opera hall bathrooms and these other gigs. So he kind of knows he wants to be in this world of like, of the arts and in music and I just like that he's got this ambition to him. And it's just by chance that he gets these opportunities.
Well, yeah, and as what I say is that if you remember the ascent, from his basement apartment, that's a very valid, visual theme. If you remember the scene prior where he's playing piano at this garden party in New York
Yeah.
overlooking Central Park, so he's part of this group, this rarefied New York strata, society, and it's the mistaken identity because he's wearing the borrowed blazer, of this friend. It's got the Princeton coat of arms on the breast pocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the father says, "Oh, you must know our son Dickie. He was at Princeton. He graduated, class of 50, whatever it was,
It's
and
quite an
and then,
assumption.
oh, how is Dickie? And he just kind
Yeah.
of like goes into the thing. He doesn't bother to correct and say, "Oh, no, I didn't." He just you get this sense that he really enjoys being part of this, this rich society, so
Well,
much
that's
so
what I
that he
like. He
will,
doesn't really telling the lies. He's letting the other people lie for him,
yeah,
and he's just kind of like not denying it.
right,
So it's really calculated way of forwarding his status through this.
right,
Well, that's why I think
right,
all that ambition is channeled. I kind of think he's just like a lazy goof around, except for the fact that
hmm,
he wants to have a social status that comes with ease and luxury and
sure,
not really having to work super hard.
hmm,
So I think he's ambitious in that way. But I've heard, and I haven't read the book. Dave, maybe you can tell us. I know you've read the book, but
Mm,
that this is a huge character shift, that the character is very different in the film from
hmm,
how he is in the book. Do you
hmm.
remember it that way?
yeah,
That's
is
it's
there built-in trauma? Like that's what my question was as well, because it's not really mentioned. Like, why is he the way he is? Why is he gifted at impersonating? What is his trauma
mhm.
that makes him the way he is? Is that painted out, fleshed out in the book more?
Not really. He's actually he in the book he is equally amount as a cipher. But in the character in the book, he's I want to say I'm trying to remember if it's that he works in a bank or he's like some sort of a clerk, but he also has a bunch of these really minor schemes, fraud and blackmail, anonymous
Really
fraud and blackmail, to which he augments his income, let's say,
interesting.
so that's a little bit of a different thing than what you have
Yeah.
in the film, but
I
it's
read that he
equally.
was maybe more sociopathic, kind of just
Oh,
cold, get what you need.
definitely,
Oh, he's
definitely,
stone
and
cold sociopath from the get go. I feel like
from
he
the
just
get go,
hasn't really refined it into a life of crime yet.
yeah, which is also something that you feel the impression, even though it's invisible, but there's the impression of Patricia Highsmith, who's the author, and we could actually do a whole podcast just on her, and on
Mhm.
what she brought to the table because I mean, I will just say this: Lord Almighty, the woman was very talented, but as they used to say on the Ricky Lake Show, she had issues. I mean, like serious issues. And then, but when you see characters like Ripley, you see her sort of, playing them out, via this, fictional avatar, which is kind of what's going on because she herself also had a traumatic childhood. There's sort of a, broken psychology there. She had, she was attracted to both, men and women before deciding that she really belonged with other women, but she had problems, maintaining, a stable relationship with a single partner at any given time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
S
So,
Yeah, and there's such a, especially in that the first, I would even say like the first 2/3, because the final act of this movie really goes so quick. There's so much sympathy for Ripley. I mean, it's
yeah.
not like American Psycho or any of these like sort of stone cold American ambition stories. This is really a much more empathetic portrait.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. As
Yeah.
a friend of mine in LA, when actually I think it was one of my cousins saw the film before I did, and I said, "Well, what did you think?" She goes, "It's difficult to say because you're kind of rooting for the villain." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Well, you'll just have to see it." And then you see it, and then there are points where, like, well, yeah, you kind of you 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 don't want him to get caught, even though he's committed these horrible murders. You're kind of like going, "Oh God, is he gonna have to pay for his sins?" But then, every time, even to the end, with the confrontation with, Philip Baker Hall's character, the detective McCarran, who was once a book detective, if you'll recall, in Seinfeld. Anyway, that's another.
Well, you bring up a point which I think is so special about this movie is that because Tom is really the protagonist of this movie,
Mm-hmm.
even though he's a villain,
Mm-hmm.
and this entire movie is told through his eyes, it makes us complicit in everything. So it's
Right.
very uncomfortable. And I think
Mm-hmm.
this is maybe what also doesn't resonate maybe with me at first and maybe with a lot of people at the time. Not maybe not a lot of people, but which kind of
No, I
made this
think you're right.
which made this kind of like, where does this movie fit with, if do I like this, do I not like this, is because like I am complicit with this guy's actions. I don't like him, but he is our hero of the movie
Right.
and he's a despicable person.
Right.
But I am thrust forward with every single thing he's doing. I'm trapped with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of unusual for a film. And also,
Mm-hmm.
obviously this is a series of books as well. How
Mm-hmm.
often is it where the villain gets his own series and his own through line over and over? Usually it's the hero that
Mm-hmm.
is, it's the Sherlock Holmes, it's the James Bond that has the series of books. And this time we have a villain that
Mm-hmm.
is getting this constant like story after
Mm-hmm.
like serialized story. And that's unusual and kind of
The only
neat.
other No, it is very neat. The only other franchise I can think of readily is the Hannibal Lecter character,
Mhm.
Thomas Harris.
Oh, of course.
But then I would also feel like mentioning a great novel that has not been ruined by being turned into either a mediocre film or a mediocre series yet. Donna Tartt's The Secret History, which was a New York Times bestseller from the 1990s. And then also, I met her when the novel first came out. She came to Memphis on a book tour. A friend of mine worked at the bookshop that was had arranged for the signing. So I actually got to speak to her for a few minutes. And the novel's really wonderful. And, I had a select group of friends that, we were involved in medieval studies in college together. And it was, kind of mirrored the characters. And there's a murder involved, and the characters, it's similar. It's similar in context. I don't want to give too much away. It is a very much a why done it. You learn in the very first few pages, who's murdered, but you have to figure out, through the novel, you figure out, why it's done. Donna Tartt, she recently she won. There was a film made of her New York Times bestseller. I just lost it. I just lost the name of it.
Goldfinch?
The Goldfinch. Thank you. Yeah, it was the
Hmm.
Goldfinch, which made into a pretty good film.
I haven't seen it.
And I would tell you that here's another thing. I was so motivated after reading this novel several times. And I'm only going to confess this on this podcast. I wrote a stage play based on the novel. Didn't have the rights to it. I didn't have the
Back
rights
to the
to it.
frame rate exclusive.
Back to Frame Blade exclusive. And then at a Sundance Film Festival back in the early mid 2000s, Gwyneth Paltrow was at a film opening, and someone asked her, since she had the rights, was she ever going to star in or make that as a film? And she laughed and said, "Oh, I'm too old." And then this person said, "Oh, but you were wonderful in Talented Mr. Ripley, and that character could be is so close to the one that you could play in Secret History," which I didn't really see that, but and Gwyneth kind of just like laughed it off and said, "No, no, I'll leave that to another filmmaker." And then years later, when Nathan and I were in L.A., Sofia Coppola and I met her at an advanced screening of Virgin Suicides. I mentioned the Secret History to her, and she said, "I tried to buy the film rights before I shot this, and I said, but Gwyneth Paltrow has them." And she looked at me, "How did you know that?" And then,
That's
so
crazy.
yeah, a little crazy,
Gwyneth.
huh?
I want to get back to a few things on the plot here. This is kind of important because I think this shows a little bit about Tom's the way his character is developing. On the way to the airport, he has an interaction with a chauffeur. It says that the Greenleaf name opens a lot of doors. And I'm sure this is planting a seed with Tom. But when he gets to the airport, this is what's, I think, the first time he starts to lie about something in a big way. He's already begun experimenting with trying out impersonating someone else. And he meets Meredith, the Kate Blanchett character. And he introduces himself as Dickie.
Yeah.
And why do you think he does this here? Because he doesn't have to.
Right.
Right. As far as I know, this is just
It's
him
a
just
random.
trying it out. It's just for fun. I
Mhm.
was always kind of thrown off why this is, and this, he kind of like, this backfires later on in the movie. Why the reason for this, which is a good, I mean, it's great that he does this for the story, but this
Yeah.
is, why does he do this?
Because he's a sociopath?
Because he wants to be someone else. Yeah. I
Right.
think it's that simple. I think he
Yeah.
just wants to be someone else. And he knows with the tickets he has, you know, he would be seen as like the pity case or the worker. And I don't think he wanted
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
you know?
I did think
One
it was
thing.
a little bit of an in joke that Mangala is playing with, like the chauffeur is saying, the Greenleaf name opens a lot of doors. I was like, yeah, they pay your salary to open doors, but okay, sure, you know.
That's funny.
Yeah. So
I thought, yeah.
Beach
anyway.
scene is after this.
Hell
Oh,
yeah, it
I
yeah.
is.
love this scene. First of all, Matt Damon is so awkward in that bathing suit. It's also he's posturing himself because he's so slim. He's got like
Mhm.
no body hair. He looks like almost like a young teenage boy, but he's also jacked.
Mhm.
And I read that he lost a lot of weight for this.
Mhm.
But he meets Dickie Greenleaf,
Mhm.
and who is sun drenched.
Mhm.
He is
And
like Jude Law is like a golden god on this beach chair. He just pops off the screen. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
he's got
Yeah.
like vintage round sunglasses,
Yeah.
and everything about him is screaming laid back luxury. It's just the
Yeah.
perfect visual of privilege and
Mhm.
allure.
Mhm.
And I just love his throwaway line about Tom's whiteness
Mhm.
Yeah.
and lack of a tan. And of course, his girlfriend Marge, Gwyneth Paltrow, might be the pastiest actress working in Hollywood.
Right.
So it's
But there's just an ease. Like he just has this ease that Ripley can't mimic. And
Yeah.
I think that's such a core tenet of the movie. Like what happens here is what happens through the whole movie, which is this in crowd knows. Like this in crowd can smell an imposter. These are blue bloods. They know this guy never had a silver spoon in his mouth.
Mhm.
And no matter
Right.
how much, he makes and scrapes his way through, he's always going to be new money. He's always going to be a new name.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's never going to get what he wants with these people. And you see
Mhm.
it right here.
Right.
Oh, did we go
'Cause
to Princeton? Did you know me? I didn't know you.
yeah.
Did you know me?
It's like you weren't important enough to make an impression on me, you know.
Right.
And then he also has to put him in his place about he was like, you're so, you're so white,
Right.
And then of course, but then Tom has to sort of be this, ingratiating, like, oh, how do I play this off with the sense of humor? It's just primer, and then
Right.
it's like what, like,
Yeah.
and because he's heard him, but that whole like what I didn't hear you, thing, like I can't even hear you from up here, thing,
Yes.
Mhm.
because I'm so superior to you. He's like, what did you say? And then of course he has to like play the court gesture for a moment, and then just like, primer, it's an undercoat. It's like, oh, okay, so he's working class enough to know what primer is.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
And working
And then
class enough to have to be funny to get out of the pot shots.
right.
Mhm.
And but then Dickie even makes fun of Marge and says, Marge likes it because she's so white too. But then what you don't know in the film, but it comes across in the novel, is that Marge herself, even though there's a throwaway line that she has later about I hated all the Park Avenue crowd, but in the novel, she's from Ohio. She's not from Park Avenue.
Mm.
So she's
Oh.
not, a waspy Dickie status type Manhattanite either. So,
Okay.
or Oyster Bay, I think.
After this, there's a scene. Now, here's a funny thing. Dickie picks up the girl Sylvana on his Vespa.
Mm-hmm.
Funny thing is, up until this viewing, because the way this is shot, I didn't realize that this was Sylvana because it's shot on a long lens, and I never made the connection that this is the same girl,
Mm-hmm.
or I never really paid that close attention to it. So I never really made the connection, the importance of Sylvana early on in this movie, because if I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know that this was Sylvana in this scene here, the interactions afterwards never really connected well for me, because there's aren't that many between Dickie and Sylvana after this.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until this time I realized it was the same girl. So that's my own shortcoming. But this is all through Tom's POV. That this is why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um,
I
Yeah.
think Saban is a great example of the casual brutality of the upper class. You know, this movie says a lot about manipulation and motivation and climbing the social ladder, but the violence for the most of the movie is done by Tom Ripley, our blue collar hero, you know, anti-hero. But Sylvana is really where you see the upper crust having real tragic effect, and of course his hands are technically clean for the kill.
well, I'm saying I wish there was more connective tissue
Mm-hmm.
with Dickie and Sylvana. I get what's going on here. I wish, you know, I don't need everything spelled out for me, but I think they could have made a little more clear of this affair. I think there are some couple smoldering glances when he goes to like her fruit stand or something like that. I was not making, again, I'm dense sometimes. Sometimes I need things spelled out. It was not obvious to me, like, who is this girl? What's going on here? And then I think it's supposed to be naturally ambiguous later on when Sylvana ends up dead. Was it suicide? Is there a possibility she was murdered? I think I think she did commit suicide, but I think it's a part of this movie that could have been written a little bit better. You know, what her role is in this.
So
That's just me.
It's very subtle, but there is a shot. Okay, when Dickie, you know, when Dickie and Tom and Marge are out on the boat, and then they're coming back in. Now
Yeah.
this is after the whole. There's a scene that Tom witnesses where, you know, Sylvana, they're leaving Marge's, and then he sees her at her family, you know, groceria, you know, the fruit and food stand, and she says, "I need to talk to you," and he's like, "Sylvana, Sylva," he's doing that number,
Yeah.
and so you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay." He's playing this kind of thing with her. Now, then the following scene is they're on the boat,
He's on
you
the
know, Marge and
rocks.
Tom. Yeah, and then when they come back into port, you see her. You can see her just. It's like the shot is that she is like within the frame,
I remember the
just over
medium shot of
Dickie's.
her looking out on
Yeah,
the rocks. I
there's
remember
a
that shot.
reverse where you're
Oh,
looking at Dickie, and she's just over his shoulder, but in the background, like she sees all three of them on that boat, and then after that, she's found dead, floating in the water.
but I didn't see the anguish in her is maybe what it is. Maybe because I didn't see them fighting. I didn't see
Right,
them having
right,
this something that would have caused her to, I mean,
right, right,
obviously,
right,
you
right.
know, she is engaged. She's probably supposed to be a virgin because this is an Italian,
Yeah, it's an
you know,
Italian town in the
society. So I get
1950s.
that. And
Yeah,
this would be a
yeah.
travesty if she was pregnant and supposed to get married. I get all that. I understand the culture, but I
Mhm,
never saw that the argument. Not that I need to have it spelled out like so
mhm,
obviously, but I kind of wish we just got a little bit of the flavor of that tension of
mhm.
what could have been mounting off on the side there. And I didn't see like the last shot we have of her, that close up where she's kind of like on the rocks, kind of looking kind of distant. That's the last close up we have of her. And I didn't see like this is a woman on the
Right,
verge of ending it. I didn't see that.
right,
That's all
right.
I'm saying.
You see a slight there's like a slight, like, you know, kind of dismissive, but not really abjectly, you know, suicidal. I thought the character to me it harkened back a lot to F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, the Myrtle Wilson character. You know, the
Mhm.
character that is accidentally killed by Daisy, and then she moves it, you know, like then the rest of the plot kind of hinges on the fact that she accidentally died, you know, and then that sort of triggers everything else.
Yeah,
Go
and I
ahead.
hear what you're saying, Nathan. I don't disagree, but I kind of like that she is just a footnote in their
Mm,
story, and
right.
that she's really not given any, like all these other characters, it's about their motivations,
Hmm.
and it's really not about hers because it is just that she's a castaway. She
It is.
doesn't matter in their story. All she does is color Dickie, and you know, yeah.
Yeah. It
Hmm.
becomes an opportunity for Tom to step up and say, "Well, I can now help you cover this up." Because when he senses their friendship is crumbling, now it's a plot beat for him to like, well, she was pregnant and I can now be your best friend again by making sure that Marge doesn't know about this and blah, blah, blah. So it becomes just really just like, as you say, a footnote, but like just a plot point so that he can kind of help bring their friendship back again. I think is kind of what the point of it is, because it really doesn't go anywhere otherwise. I mean, Dickie gets distraught for 4 minutes about the whole thing, gets a little mopey around the house.
Dickie's hot and cold. Like when you're talking about their friendship sort of on the rocks, that to me is the moment where I'm like, whoa, did I just miss something in this movie? Like it's so sudden.
I know. But before we talk about the friendship getting in the rocks, how about when they are really at their peak, when they go to that jazz club? Because that's one of the most joyous moments in this movie. And what is the song that
it's
this big number?
Tu Vio la far americano, which is the translation is, and this is in my horrible Italian.
I captured it. I think
you want to be an American. So this is a song that would have come out. I think I actually did the mental math. This song would have come out 2 years before the events in the film, so it's still a relatively new and very popular song. But the subtext of the song is it's another hint from the director. It's very telling. It's sort of in a humorous way calling out the influence of Americans on Italian society post World War II, and it's saying things like you wear jeans with the brand on them, and you dress like and they're using the phrase guapo, which is like a Spanish term for like a pompous show off person. Like you're showing off like you're an American. You like baseball, or you want to play baseball. You drink whiskey and soda, but it only gives you a headache or a hangover.
Yep.
Which is kind of genius, because in the next scene you see Tom
Damon's got the hangover.
He's got the hangover, and he's in Dickie's apartment. Yeah. So, but it's a great scene. And then of course the other subtle thing is that Dickie, they're there without Marge, and Fausto, who is the Italian character who is actually Silvana's fiance, is there, but there's another girl that comes up and kisses Dickie full on the lips.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, this is what goes on.
And you saw
Marge
Tom's reaction to that too.
Right, which is like, oh, Dickie's getting around,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're only like a half hour into this movie, and there's so much that happens.
I know, and it happened, like the big stuff really happens like an hour in. But when did you all clock for the first time that it was potentially a romantic attraction? Because this is where I've read the film and the book deviate a little bit, where it's not purely sociopathic, but there's, is he using sex as a means to an end to get what he wants, or is this some deep attraction where he can't tell if he wants to be with this person or sort of sublimate into their character?
I think around here, because when the way he goes up on that stage and he's looking at Dickie, because he's trying to sing, but he's basically transfixed on Dickie during that song, trying to follow his lead. Mm-hmm. He's both like half scared out of his wits and half intoxicated by the experience. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing him, I think, real time falling in love with Dickie in that moment.
Mm-hmm. He's so magnetic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's singing along with them. He's singing along with them at one moment, but then My Funny Valentine, he's not singing that about. He's singing that to Dickie. He wants Dickie to be his funny Valentine, so to speak.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I think right after this shortly is the bathtub scene.
Yeah, which is
Now I'm a straight male, but I'm telling you, like, this is one of the most
sexy scenes
I've seen in a long time. Yeah. They're playing chess, which is
famously a sexy game.
What a metaphor already, Clearly Tom is attracted to Dickie and even mentions getting in the tub with him. Mm-hmm. Dickie doesn't look at him, think of him that way, he says, but he loves strutting around. He loves being the center of attention. And, even when he gets out of the tub, he's looking over his shoulder. He wants eyes on him all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's such a ham. He's testing Tom, and of course you get the music and the cinematography, the soft lighting in this is an incredible scene.
No, I've read an interpretation that the reason for the sudden iciness in Dickie is that when Freddie comes around, who I want to start talking about, but when Freddie comes around, suddenly that like fragile potential romance, he snaps back into his, sort of blue blood. He's like, oh no, we don't do that here. And so he's putting up some defenses around the Philip Seymour Hoffman character, which maybe, but also I just wouldn't be surprised if, Dickie Greenleaf just wanted to use people for attention and clout and status. I think
that's a great, probably very likely take. Well, Freddie Miles comes in like a tornado. He's got a red Alfa Romeo Spider. I mean,
I hate him just because of that car. I hate him.
Oh, it's a gorgeous car.
It's a gorgeous car. That car is,
and don't you just wish you could fuck every woman just once? What a douche. I mean, like,
a complete douche. Yeah, truly. Yeah.
But hey, what a year for Philip Seymour Hoffman. I mean, we're reviewing Magnolia in a couple of weeks, so I mean, this was the year of the Hoff.
Oh yeah, great actor. I mean, like a douchey character, but it takes a genius level actor to be able to play, that douchebaggery, that level of douchebaggery.
Yeah,
He played a lot of douches in his career to come away as beloved as he did. Playing just a lot of huge D-bags.
Scent of a Woman. The character in Scent of a Woman who winds up.
I love him in Happiness. It's one of my favorite roles of his.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! Yeah, that's
next level.
Really scary.
Yeah. Anyways, but he adds another whole level of energy to this movie, and I think B, you said it, because Dickie, he's got a new boy toy, in town, and it changes the chemistry of everyone's friendship here.
So there's a scene when they're in the record store in Rome, because remember, like, the trip to Rome, and Ripley, Tom, wants to go. He thinks we're going to go to the tailor shop, and we're going to go sightseeing, and we're going to go out to eat, and I'm going to hang out with Dickie. But then no, they get there, and then nope, Freddie shows up. They go to the record shop, and he's like, well, we're going to go to this jazz club, and Freddie's arranging with a skiing crowd, and you can come if you want, which means
you don't really belong.
You don't really belong. And we're probably going to score some girls on the side, and we don't want you around. But then there's a scene where, like, the camera does a close-up of Philip Seymour Hoffman as Freddie, and he's got this look, this really dark look, and he's staring at Ripley, and he's like, he's like, I don't like you. You're a fake, you're a phony, and I don't.
He's the only one who clocks Ripley right away, because throughout all of this, and what we haven't really talked about is the friendship with Gwyneth Paltrow. The friendship with Marge, which is just sort of bubbling under the surface. And maybe she's getting the attention she needs from him when Dickie's putting her in the shadows.
Yeah. And then actually, I would also argue that Freddie is on the verge of figuring out that Tom is masquerading as Dickie, just before he gets hit in the head with that bust of Herodotus, just before his tree literally hits him in the head, like boom,
Yeah. So just to wrap up a little bit about Freddie and their gathering, they go out on that boat, the four of them, and Paltrow and Dickie, Tom, and Freddie. Very memorable scene as well. Dickie and Freddie are off frolicking in the water, and this is where Tom realizes that he's been disinvited from their ski trip.
Right.
Also, I think prior to this is this prior to when Tom learns that the funding has been cut off? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know.
Anyways, but he realizes that he's been put on the back burner, and Marge has kind of enlightened Tom a little bit that, there's a great bit of dialogue where, with Dickie, when the sun shines on you or something like that, but it's so fleeting, and then it feels wonderful when it's there, but then it's just normal for him to go off into the next thing, and it happens with women as well. So it's a really, really kind of heartbreaking scene, and you kind of see where she's really a tragic figure in this as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Because she is a victim in this. This is also followed by, where Dickie says he's got to do margin maintenance, which I think is such a ridiculous
So
line.
gross.
And one of the best lines of all time is when Tom is caught spying on them underneath, and Freddie has
the peeping Tom.
How's the peeping Tom?
Tommy, how's the peeping? Tommy,
I love
how's
it.
the peeping? Tommy.
What unnerving delivery.
By the way, this is permanently going in our bank of audio files.
Tommy.
Oh God.
Tommy.
As it should.
Yes.
What? I love just the cinematography in this movie. Just the way the camera's moving for all this action that's happening and simmering beneath the surface. And every time, this movie loves a mirror moment. This movie loves things in the shadows. And every time I don't feel hit over the head with it, even though it's very blunt, and this movie is very blunt in all its metaphors. But we get a little bit here, and definitely at the end, some of those final shots in the piano cover and stuff of his face are just really, just really stunning. Really great visual storytelling in this movie.
Oh my God, yeah. We need to move along here a little bit, but the boat, they go on the dinghy. I mean, we already know that the jig is up with, as far as with Tom. Dickie's father's no longer going to be funding this anymore. He's given up on trying to get his son home. And this is when Dickie realizes, you know what? You can't pay your own way. We're going to end this friendship. I'm bored with you. And for whatever reason, I don't understand why they go out so far on a little rowboat. Seems like a silly idea, but they decide that they're going to hash it out in the middle of the ocean, the middle of the Mediterranean, and really erupts in one of the most violent, shocking scenes I've seen in a while.
So Dickie, I think that Dickie introduced the scene in saying that he wanted to go out and look at the town so that he could find a new apartment, because he wants to move away from Angibello. So that was ostensibly the purpose.
But did he also say he wanted to leave Marge also prior to this as well, or
He said, well, what he says is I'm so sick of Mangiabello, and now with everything, and he's implying, the whole thing with Silvana's death.
Yeah.
He just, he has the,
he just wants to get out. Yeah.
He wants to get away. He
wants to run away. He wants to start fresh. Again, it's like the whole thing of the line, in Great Gatsby about how, the rich, they're just able to destroy people, and then they break them like toys, and then they just move on. So that's Dickie's, that's Dickie's MO. Yeah. But I think that it was, I'm trying to remember that, but it's at this point too that Ripley, Ripley's becoming more and more frustrated, that he's not, that he feels like there's this very real distance becoming between him and Dickie, because like Dickie has announced, this will be our last trip together. And then we'll say goodbye in style. There's this idea that like, yeah, I'm waving goodbye to you. You're going away, or I'm gonna go away. And then that's when they have the confrontation about about Tom's feelings for him. And then, it all comes crashing down with the oar,
Yep.
So,
and after he kills him, he spoons him. He doesn't want the fantasy to go away either. So it's so disturbing.
It's disturbing. It's like a staging of a weird birth. It's like they're sharing the womb, this bloody womb of the little boat. And they're cradled together. Until eventually, I guess he figures out that, he's just like, Dickie's. I've got to dispose of Dickie's body.
Yeah.
And then there's the mistaken identity again, as B pointed out, at the hotel, where the concierge comes in And he goes, Monsieur Greenleaf, right? And then at first he starts to, he's like, no, and he's like, oh yeah, yeah, I am. Yeah, give me the key to Dickie's room because yeah, I'm Dickie. Yeah.
So we probably need to move things along here a little bit because this is only the first 60 minutes of the movie, and there's so much that's packed into this. There's so many memorable scenes, but he goes through so much effort to like hide Dickie's ring. Why do you? First of all, I want to ask you guys this question: why do you think he keeps the rings?
Because he wants to be Dickie.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
was
he doesn't want to be someone like Dickie? He wants to be Dickie.
Yep.
Because this is his undoing, or could be his undoing, and it wasn't.
If I've learned anything about
out of
murderers,
love.
they take trophies.
Is it a trophy? Right. Is it love, or is it the only way he could really finish the ruse of being Dickie?
I don't think that Tom Ripley knows the difference between romantic love and wanting to be someone, and that ideation. So I think it was love for Tom Ripley because he's a freak of nature and he took the ring. What do you think, Dave?
I completely agree. I think it is. I think it's like, you're asking, is it, it's not, I would say this, it's not exactly like a serial killer's trophy because he doesn't take anything. I mean, like he didn't take anything from Freddy.
Could have taken his face. It was hanging off.
Oh my God. Could I have like Aria. A Love Lies Bleeding moment?
Right. No, but I think it's a thing of like, I think like an adolescent, like in junior high or high school and you've got a significant other and, the girl, will borrow your watch or something like that, or she gives you her class ring or something like this. I think that's sort of what was going on is that, but I think Beast has got it right. Is that he Ripley wanted to be Dickie Greenleaf, and so at this point he couldn't really be him, but he could hold on to that. He could hold on to those rings that had been so closely connected to him. So he could have that tiny little piece that he could carry with him. Yeah.
I'm going to read a quote from Roger Ebert because I really love his assessment of Tom Ripley. And I think he kind of nails it here. Tom Ripley seems to have feelings for Dickie Greenleaf, although narcissism and sexuality are so mixed up in his mind that Ripley seems to want to become Greenleaf so that he can love himself. I think so. I really like that.
I like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because that's the thing. That's part of the nature of, of envy. Is that it's not just, it's not just this idea that that you're like, oh, I want what this person has, but but you it's not that you just want the possessions or even the lifestyle, which you do, but it's more to the point of like he wants to embody the happiness and the position that he thinks this other person has, by their role or by their,
which is,
yeah.
I mean, this woman who was carrying his bastard child just, killed herself. Marge is devastated and upset and unhappy with him. Like it's just insane to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward here a little bit. Tom and Meredith go to the opera together. And this is one of those like scenes where both his worlds are converging. And what did you think of this scene here? Because this is, he's playing Ripley and for Marge, but he's also the identity of Dickie to Meredith, and he's trying to balance these two things here. And his world's starting to collapse now here. Thought that was pretty intense. I don't know if you had any thoughts on this scene here. He's hiding his ring as well. This is where I'm started thinking like, why does he have this ring? This just seems ridiculous that he'd be strutting around here. Also, here's the other thing. This is really important. Is Dickie a nobody? Because if this person is missing or dead, I mean, eventually there's this whole thing with a suicide note, and Meredith seems like a loose end. We're going to get to this later on at the conclusion here, which can't be too much longer from now. But why it seems like somebody would know what Dickie looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't Peter know what Dickie looks like? I feel like there were yearbooks, there were pictures. He's the son of a giant shipping builder tycoon.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a plot hole in the movie that nobody knows what Dickie Greenleaf looks like besides his passport photo? Okay. You're looking at me, B. You're looking at me like,
Dave, what do you think?
The thing that we have to transport ourselves back to a time.
It's 50s. I know.
Yeah. The 50s. So before social media. And also like to answer
yearbook photo.
Right. Yearbook photo. But the question, the thing is, though, like, right. But if you think about it, like who would the yearbook photos be seen by? They're not on newsstands.
There's a death. There's a they're like,
yeah.
This is the one thing that kind of just doesn't work for me, is that there's a suicide or that happens.
So I have a theory.
There's an investigation to some degree. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, B.
I have a theory. I think this is the director once again poking holes in the upper crust and how they move through the world. I think this is, you get by, you trade in on your name, and everybody looks the same. Everybody behaves the same. Everybody comes from the same kind of family. You are entirely replaceable in this world. Like, yes, of course, I think, family friends who grew up with him probably notice what he looks like, you would think, but how outside of their own heads are they getting? I think it's another, like, this is a deeply narcissistic group of people who don't have to think about anybody else, who don't even have to look at anybody else, because everybody else taking care of them. They don't, they don't have to. They trade in on their names and that's it. So I really thought it was like a criticism of the elite.
I agree.
You're right, because it's, when they go to like the post office or the bank or all these letters, they're not looking closely at these pictures.
The cops are able to put together a trail pretty quick.
Yeah, I know. So obviously that's what they're saying in this movie, but I still kind of like, someone's going to figure this out. It's
well,
I thought that was part of your missing story.
Yeah. And then, but I would say, again, to Nathan's point, I would say that, it's possible that like there might have been like a time life spread of, Herbert Greenleaf and his family at some point, and people would see it. But the thing is that, again, not everyone, would see it. We're talking about a select few people. It's like those yearbooks, like who's really looking at a Princeton yearbook, not the guy on the street, and probably not people at an opera in Rome, or that are in Rome for the season or whatever, casual tourists, that they're going to remember it. Interesting, another Jude Law film, Gattaca, where you also have this transposition of identities with Jude Law. And there's even the thing with Tony Shalhoub's character, who is, he is the guy that is the agent for the quote unquote borrowed ladder, Jude Law's character, of his DNA. And he's like, well, what about photographs? And he's like, really, with DNA tests, who looks at photos anymore? Because they have that whole little, and it's just become a society where they just don't, it's like, oh, well, he's a young American man, looks a little bit like this. Okay. So it, is it or isn't it? It's like, well, again, I feel like this is the director channeling the writer, channeling the novel, the whole, unreliable narrator telling a story, to us. So, yeah, but I don't know. It's
interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting
It's
point.
a great tense scene. This movie's so great at carrying tension.
Oh,
Yeah. It's really, just because it's long. This movie is almost inexcusably long. And
2 hours and 20 minutes.
It's a long, very character-driven movie, but it just keeps you there that whole time, and you get these little highs like the opera scene.
Yeah.
We're going kind of long tonight, so maybe we should jump ahead to a couple of the things that happen at the end here. there is an intent. This is kind of important because eventually Marge does find the rings, and this is a pivotal part of the movie. And this is really intense because Dickie is in the bath. I think there's also we could talk about like the water themes in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
ocean, bathtubs, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes out and he realizes that he's caught. He's in this lie here, but he's quickly pivots to professing his love for Marge in the scene as well. And this turns, I mean, I'm assuming that if Peter does not come to the door, he's going to murder Marge in this scene. I guess. I don't know if you got this feeling, but I love the way this is shot because it's really ratcheting up the tension and he is cornering Marge
Oh yeah.
in this. There is, where is, I have a, yeah, I'll, do I have I thought I had a clip of it, but I don't. Well, I do have a clip of it. I love this. Here it is.
Write it on a piece of paper or something and put it in your purse for a rainy day. Tom loves me. Tom loves me.
Why do you have Dickie's rings?
I told you, he gave them to me.
Why? When?
I feel as if you haven't been listening to anything I've been saying to you.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
It's all true.
I don't believe a single word you've said.
You're shivering, Marge. Look at you, Marge. Can I hold you? Will you let me hold you?
That isolated, that really sounds like a horror movie, huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's intense.
It is intense. Gwyneth Paltrow is acting her ass off in this movie.
I was going to say, I think this is peak Paltrow.
Yeah.
I don't know if, I mean, she won the Academy Award for Shakespeare in Love, but I don't think this is the Mount Rushmore for Paltrow for me, easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I would say that I did enjoy her in Royal Tenenbaums, but I'm a Wes Anderson fan too. So there you go.
Me too.
If we ever do a Mount Rushmore episode for actors or actresses, we could do some fun kind of thing for that, but that would be.
I misspoke. Royal Tenenbaums. Oops. It was Royal Tenenbaums, not Rushmore.
No, yeah.
You said
sorry. Wrong Wes Anderson film. Sorry. I apologize.
That's a good one too, though.
It is.
Okay. What else here? We need to skip along here.
So then at this point, we have Marge and Cate Blanchett kind of bumping into each other in the street, right?
Yeah.
Have I skipped way far ahead?
No, that's actually, I think, well before this.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, we skipped through a lot of things here because we're going pretty long here. I think we should get to the conclusion of this because they get to the ferry at the end of this because Dickie, Tom, whomever, has pretty much offed everybody in his life that can tie him to who he is, including Freddie, and now he is with Peter, which is kind of, what's interesting. This is 1999, and this movie, they really dance. I think they do dance around Tom's homosexuality in this film. We never blatantly see him like ever kiss a man, and this is not billed as a gay film, of course, or anything or anything like that. And I don't think audiences knew or would have. I don't know if it would have how they would have marketed this differently, but they did. There's nothing in the marketing that would make you think.
Well, the author has come out and said she doesn't think that he's gay and that the text is much more ambiguous and it's more about the use of sex to get what he needs, but it's sort of regardless of gender. I think the movie's much more explicit from what it sounds like.
Interesting.
And Dave, maybe you can confirm. But so I wonder if not spelling it out in the movie is sort of more a character decision than it is.
Because it's a little ambiguous what his relationship is with Peter at first. In this. Sure. Obviously, it's a relationship with him, but it's not explicit what it is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it gets eventually it gets there, and then you understand, oh, they're in a relationship, and then there's a whole thing about the whole exchange of the key with the confrontation with Marge at the apartment. And he says, I could come back later. And then he takes a key off the key ring and gives it to him. He's like, your key. And it's like, oh, okay. But there was subtle language, like, and I was told this by an older friend of mine. It's gay, who's, who watched the film. And he says, like, he goes, didn't you pick up on the whole thing when he's there at the opera? And he says, I hope you get to Venice before we sink. I was really looking forward to rowing you around.
Yeah.
And I was like, and for me, who's straight, I was like, what? And he's like, rowing him around, really? I was like, think about the motion of rowing someone. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, okay, all right. He's not talking about, okay, all right, I get it.
It's pretty explicit. And then especially, I think that interrogation scene with the cop where he's like, oh, you don't have homosexuals in Italy. There are actually no homosexuals in Italy. It's like, oh, yeah, we get it. Right. We get it. But I think the motivation behind his sexual trysts is intentionally ambiguous, not because they didn't know how to market it in the 90s or they didn't want it to be a queer film. Mm-hmm. I think it's more of a character thing.
I agree, but although I think it also, again, it kind of speaks to the genius of the thing, because it operates on a level where, it doesn't have to wear that, on the shoulder to say, like, look, this is a gay themed film. It's just like, oh, it's just that this character happens to be this way, gay, or I'm not even sure. The thing is for me, it's like I'm even sort of left with the confusion of, like, is Ripley, gay, or is he just like, I mean, he's certainly, he is certainly attracted to Dickie, but in other novels, and in other novels and other stories, he's attracted to women. So, what is he really? I mean, what is he?
Is he bi? Is he
bi? Is he
asexual?
Right.
So
right.
On certainly the ferry, he runs. This is at the end of the movie. On the ferry, he runs into Meredith, and the seed was planted early on where he identifies himself as Dickie. Early on, and this is the one person that knows him as Dickie. And what I found interesting is that, and then there's her Aunt Joan or other people that see him from afar, but he decides that in order to continue the facade, he has to go back to his room because Meredith, so many names. Meredith knows Peter, that he has to murder Peter to continue this. Why do you think that Peter is the one that has to die and not Meredith? Because Meredith seems like the natural loose end here, because Peter knows him as Dickie. Why keep the one person alive that still knows him as Dickie? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is something that I don't know if there's theories on this.
I don't know. I never really thought about it.
Yeah, I guess it's a thing of
throw her overboard.
Well, but remember,
I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know.
Remember, she's with family. She's with family. So then it would be a thing of if she turns up missing, the family. In other words, you can't murder the whole family. I think it was really a question of numbers. So it was a thing of, like, if he murders, the calculation. If he murders Meredith, the family on board is going to demand, they're going to demand an investigation, and everything. But then if Peter disappears, is that easier for him to cover up? So
Peter is not a nobody, though. He is a musician. He's got a very good gig working with this orchestra. It's not like he is a nobody and can just disappear. He must have some ties, and I get that. I'm looking for a deeper meaning into why
he made that choice.
Why he made that choice? Because it seems like he's a sociopath.
But do you think it's about wanting to be Dickie, so killing the person who knows him as Tom?
Maybe he doesn't.
Maybe.
Was it really Dickie though, or is it the this desire to keep on lying and impersonating? I mean, was it about Dickie, or is it something bigger than that? Because as you know, there are multiple stories here. This all can't be about Dickie, so that's why I'm a little confused by that.
I think in this isolated story in the canon, it is about him wanting to sort of get away with the ruse, and the ruse is that he's Dickie, and I don't know. But then he's on a ferry whisking away with Peter, so I don't. Maybe not. Maybe he likes to. Maybe he's going to assume his identity when he kills him.
I thought of that too. It might be easier to assume his identity. Is he wearing? I have to look at. Is he wearing his clothes at the end or anything like that? I don't know.
He is wearing his coat. He's wearing. Now that you mention it, because the coat that he has, which is a particular type of English. It's called a duffel coat. I know because I have one, and with the toggles on it and everything. And you see Peter in several scenes, like when he first greets Tom in Venice at St. Mark's Square, he's wearing it. And then and when he waves to him from the boat, like Tom is coming up on the boat and he's walking along the square and he waves at him, he's wearing the overcoat. And then at the very end scene, after, Tom is in his cabin alone, and where they're playing the outro and the credits rolling up, Ripley is sitting there and he's wearing Peter's overcoat, which he'd been wearing on deck when he kissed Meredith. And he even makes a joke, he makes a reference to it. He says, that's the reason for the getup. That's the reason for the clothes.
He's been present, yeah.
Right. Because the thing is that also that coat is not. I mean, like you would see it on American Ivy League campuses at the time, but it's something very English. It was something that was made as like a uniform coat for the Navy, and then probably sold in like surplus stores by the 1950s. Would explain Peter, who's supposed to be English, for for him having it, yeah.
All right.
So
what a good movie.
Yeah, it's great film. Great film.
Well, we've been talking for an hour about this film. For a while. Let's take a break and get to our final thoughts and our ratings and our vote decision on this. All right. So thank you for tuning into our podcast. If you're enjoying it, please hit the subscribe button to get new episodes in your feed each and every week. We don't have a budget for paid advertising, so we rely on you, our listeners, to help us spread the word. The best way to support us is by spreading the word, posting about it on social media, or better yet, tell the people in your life who love movies about, I don't know what I'm saying anymore, who love movies. You can find us at backtotheframerate.com and follow us at Back to the Frame Rate on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. And lastly, we would be incredibly grateful if you left us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We thank you for your support.
Hey, you fool! Who let you in here?
Baby!
What are you doing here in Rome?
Make a picture in Rome!
You look awful.
You like my sexy beard? Take it easy, kid.
Woo-hoo! Take my shoes off.
All right. We're going to get to our review, our final thoughts on this, our vote decision, whether a talented Mr. Ripley is going to be saved or purged into the fiery apocalypse of the film annals. I don't know. Let's get to it. David, you are our distinguished guest. Give us your final thoughts on talented Mr. Ripley and your rating and your vote decision.
So, okay, I need to. What's the rating scale? Or
we're going 1 to 5. You can go half stars or full stars, but 1 to 5.
Oh, I give it a solid 5.
Okay,
Roman numeral 5. Anyway,
but would your sum up your final thoughts on this, please?
So this is Minghella Talented Mr. Ripley is is one of those, rare adaptions that I feel like really it really enhances the source material. I think that for 21st century audiences, it's much more accessible than the novel. I am a fan of the novel. I do like the novel. I do think you should read the source material, but I think that it makes it gives you a more well-rounded view, of the characters, or it being, somewhat of, of having mystery. At least it gives you a better impression for me, of the characters than even the novel does. So, and I would say that it should be saved. It should go into the vault. Yes. So that's my rating and my review.
Thank you. B, what say you? You're muted, I think.
I said it 4 years later. I never figured out how to do that. But yeah, To the Manor Born. I love this movie. It's compelling. It's captivating. It's dreamy and ethereal. It's everything I like in a movie. It's a solid 4.5 for me. Yes to the vault, if not just for a better study on inner motivations of characters. We could use more of this.
Excellent. And for me, I think this is just one of those movies that stays with you, not just because how beautifully crafted it is, but because of how deeply unsettling it feels. It's also rare for a film to draw you in with such a glamorous setting and stunning cinematography, as well as magnetic performances. It's lush. I mean, everything is just like honey soaked.
Lush,
the lighting in this. And it's this idyllic world of 1950s Italy. You want to go back there. That's what is so special about this. You got the golden beaches and jazz clubs. And it's painting a fantasy, but it's, it slowly starts to wrap you in with this suffocating sense of dread. And it's a pretty neat trick. I think what also makes this so emotionally gripping is just how it forces us to live in Ripley's head. And Matt Damon plays him with such precision, and you almost start to understand his desperation and his longing to be someone else. So it's just fascinating and terrifying because you catch yourself empathizing with him and even rooting for him in this really uncomfortable way. And then things spiral out of control and you feel this pit in your stomach because you know where it's heading and you're powerless to stop it. And I said this at the top of the show. This is one of the most perfectly cast movies of all time. You've got Damon, Jude Law, Paltrow, and Kate Blanchett, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, 5 actors, all either on the brink of superstardom or probably in Paltrow's case, right in the peak of her career. And Paltrow, we talked about her a little bit, but I think in particular, it really hit me. There's just a specific kind of heartbreak in how she plays Marge. And I know this is technically a supporting performance, but I said it before, this is on my Mount Rushmore of her roles for me. She's this good in this movie. It's a rare thing for a movie to be, gorgeous and emotionally devastating at the same time, but somehow it accomplished this perfectly, and it leaves you equally parts in awe and unsettled. This is I don't know if I can top 5 stars, which is what I'm giving it. So maybe 6 stars, but this is a fantastic film. So, and yes, it definitely needs to go in the vault.
I agree.
All right. Let's quickly knock out some movie pairings, and then let's wrap it up tonight.
Sir.
What?
Are either one of these any good?
I don't watch movies.
Well, have you heard anything about either one of them?
I find it's best to stay out of other people's affairs.
You mean you haven't heard anybody say anything about either one of these?
Nope.
Well, what about these two?
Oh, they suck.
All right, time for movie pairings, where each of us is going to pair up a film to go with the talented Mr. Ripley for the ultimate double feature. Dave, you are our guest tonight. What movie are you recommending?
So this is I think we talked about this a little bit at the top of the show.
Or
It's difficult for me
movies?
to do one, but I will attempt to do to explain. Okay, these are the art house double bills that I would do with options. So probably the most obvious, and you'll see this in a lot of reviews here lately, is everybody saying, well, you should, if you watched Saltburn, you should watch Talented Mr. Ripley because it's so obviously, it's so obviously like derivative of that, which having seen them both and enjoyed both of them for different reasons, like, well, okay, sure. But I sort of feel like that's the easy way out. Okay, a less easier way out would be to go back and look at another film which I feel was also based on Patricia Highsmith, and it was Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train. And so Hitchcock was like already an established filmmaker when he made this, but and Patricia Highsmith was still a young author. I think that when it came out, she wasn't even 30 years old yet. But Hitchcock, started making a bestseller list, and Hitchcock, looking for material like that, quickly was like, I want to make this into a film, and he did. It's very effective. It's a great film. The themes about murder and homosexual attraction and identity switching and the confusion there, that's it's runs throughout that, and you get the idea that if Hitchcock were alive, would he certainly, I feel like he probably would have made a very similar film to Mangela's Talented Mr. Ripley. So Strangers on a Train. Now, okay, if having recently returned from Italy, this is my sort of wild card. If you want a really beautiful view of Rome from a Roman point of view and from a Roman filmmaker's point of view, Paolo Sorrento's The Great Beauty, or La Gran Bellezza
Favorites.
from 2013. Yeah, it's look, it's a love letter to Rome. I mean, much in the way that Fellini's films are, but even much more accessible. My personal experience with the film is that when I was planning my last trip to Rome with my cousin and his wife, we were talking about trying to find the apartment of the main character, and just saying like, hey, it would be really cool if we could just go and find where they shot that and look at it from the street. Well, my cousin, being the person that he is, really did the research, and he goes, okay, he goes, well, I got a surprise. He goes, I did a little research. He goes, here's the address that I found for the location. Here's the address of the Airbnb that I booked for us. And I was like, wait a minute. He goes like, yeah, it's the same building. He goes like, I'm going to tell you, and he goes, I have to warn you, I have to let you down. It's not the penthouse like the main character. It's 2 floors below.
Oh my
But
gosh.
the view from this place is that there's this tiny little balcony, but then you open the French doors of the balcony, and directly in front of this residence is the Roman Colosseum. It's like every morning and every evening that you return to this apartment, you see the Roman Colosseum, like, right there, just as they show you in that film. So
Talk about being beaten over the head with Herodotus. Huh?
Oh,
It's
right.
incredible.
No kidding. Yeah, there he is. Actually, and what's really funny about you mentioning that is there was a smaller bust of that in the Airbnb that we were in. I was like, oh boy, okay. This is a
Everyone
little
stay away from it, right?
Yeah, this is a
That's
little strange and cool,
amazing.
and thankfully it looks pristine fresh from the gift shop and not stained with anything old and brown, or what have you. So it was fine. So so if
It's a great
you
choice.
love Italy, I would say, La Gran Bellezza along with this. But if you really want the cinephile connection, I would say Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, because this, I feel like Minghella, I feel like this film was sort of like his homage or love letter to Hitchcock's, approach to filmmaking, with the plot twists and the turns, even with some of the camera angles. Yeah. So
Okay, thank you.
Awesome choices.
Yep. Got a couple options. B, what is your pick?
Another 1999 movie with a stacked cast. I went with tracing the theme of hot young people, twisted mind games, and queer sexuality. I went for Cruel Intentions.
Ooh, good one.
Roger Crumble.
Yeah.
This is Ripley, but super camp. Reese Witherspoon comes into a new school. She's the headmaster's daughter, and she's very pure and virginal. And enter Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Philippe. Sure. And they're twisted psychosexual sibling games that they ensnare Reese Witherspoon into. It's so gross and fun and sick, and campy is really the word that comes to mind for that, but in that very specific 90s dark way. It's so much fun, and I think I would watch Ripley and then I would watch this movie just for the final shot of Reese. Yeah.
Awesome. I haven't seen this in so long. I was kind of hoping this might make it into our 1999 retrospective.
I think Ripley's the better movie, but this is just so fun.
Yeah, I'm up. My pick. My movie pairing this week, I went with a similar theme where our main protagonist is a sociopathic character, which I think is a formula that makes for an interesting story. Hence, I went with Nightcrawler from Dan Gilroy, which is my pick.
Oh my God. Being bisexual is loving both the Gyllenhaals. Like, let me tell you guys, it is pain. It is pain.
This came out in 2014, stars Jake Gyllenhaal, and what I think is a top 3 all-time performance of his. Nightcrawler is about Louis Bloom, a morally devoid loner who struggles to find work but stumbles across the world of crime journalism. And where you race to crime scenes, accidents, and such to be the first to record these tragedies and sell it to local news outlets. The adrenaline of his job just really drive his ambition. Yeah, so Nightcrawler and the talented Mr. Ripley, I think, is a great movie pairing. Two very disturbed but ambitious sociopathic characters. And between Matt Damon and the talented Mr. Ripley and Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie, they both lost enough weight where they would both fit into Dickie's bathtub with ease.
Importantly, Nightcrawler, not a movie about the X-Men character. Which, nope, don't go in expecting that.
And Nightcrawler, I checked, is streaming on Stars right now, or you can rent it on VOD. And I was checking some of your other picks that you mentioned. Cruel Intentions is on Freevee, as long as Freevee is still a thing, which I think is going away soon, and it's on VOD. And Strangers on a Train is on Criterion in Tubi in VOD. And I didn't get the spelling of your other pick, David, so I don't know where.
If you just do The Great Beauty, you'll be able to find it, the English translation.
Right.
Everyone can Google that and find out where that might be available.
And then go watch The Young Pope and The New Pope, because those are also very solid Paolo Sorrentino works.
Absolutely. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah, so good. And you get another dose of Jude Law. So
yeah, you do.
There's that. Which, having survived Catholic school and then watching him that role, it just, like Dairy Girls, it just has me kind of like, I'm amazed and laughing all at the same time. It's very cool. To see a Pope order what does he order? It's a Diet Cherry Coke or something.
Yes.
And he's smoking a cigarette, and
he's very cool.
Yeah, he's very cool as a Pope, which is not normally something we should go in a sentence together, but there it is.
Well,
love it.
David, thank you so much for joining us again this week. Where can people find you if they want to see anything that you're working on? Do you have anything you want to share?
Well, I am on, the kids are on this social media now, so there's there's the Facebook, or I even have I don't use it very often, but I have an Instagram, which the Instagram is under my, I think it's like,
you don't have to give up personal social media if you don't want to. I don't know if there was like a home for any projects you're working on or anything.
Not yet. Hopefully there will be, but not yet.
So that's pending. Maybe next time you're with us, there might be. Who knows?
There might be. Yeah.
Okay.
Who knows?
Good idea.
Next week we are watching and discussing Election,
Oh, so good.
Alexander Payne.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to that.
I can't wait.
Great film. Yeah.
And I think is that on Criterion right now? I think it might.
Probably. I think it's been with Criterion for a while.
And so there is a new Cruel Intentions limited series. I believe it's on Amazon. I have not seen this yet, but I'm very curious.
Okay.
And when you mentioned that, I was like, okay, yeah, that's another one that, needs to go back into the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a good movie.
It is. If you're a fan of it's like Dangerous Liaisons came out when I was in junior high or high school or something, and I love that. So then Cruel Intentions came out and was like, okay, I can like this too.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's also the book.
Good stuff.
Yep.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Good stuff.
Well, let's wrap it up. That's our show for this week. Back to the Frame Rate is part of the Weston Media Podcast Network. Special thanks to Brian Ellsworth for our show opening. On behalf of all of us, we bid you farewell from the fall shelter. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Find more episodes at backtotheframerate.com and follow us on our social media platforms at Back to the Frame Rate. Your support brightens our bunker. Until next time, stay with us. Keep hope alive and share our show with your friends. This is the end of our transmission. Back to the Frame Rate, signing off.
I want you to know it's over.
Well. Bye.
Tommy.